There is a particular kind of vigilance that never quite turns off, even in relationships where you are genuinely safe. A slight pause before someone responds to you, and something in your chest tightens automatically, bracing for disappointment that may never actually arrive. You have carried this bracing for so long that it feels less like a reaction and more like a personality trait. But some part of you has begun to wonder whether it was ever actually who you are, or simply what you learned to become. Why does love sometimes feel like something you must continuously earn rather than something you were simply given? Why do certain people carry this particular vigilance into every close relationship they enter, regardless of how safe that relationship actually is? Before we explore this together, subscribe to this channel where we uncover the hidden psychology behind everyday life. Picture a house where warmth moved through the rooms unevenly, present on some days, noticeably absent on others, depending less on anything you could predict and more on factors that seemed, to a child, entirely mysterious. You learned to read the temperature of that house carefully, adjusting yourself accordingly, long before you had the language to name what you were actually doing. What might it mean, you may wonder now, that you are still reading rooms this way, in houses that are no longer that house at all? Carl Jung believed that the earliest relationships of childhood do not simply shape preference, they shape the entire architecture of the self, laying down patterns so early and so thoroughly that by adulthood, they no longer feel like patterns. They feel like identity itself. What if the vigilance you still carry was never actually a personality trait, but a survival strategy? Formed in a house where affection had to be earned rather than simply received? Here are 5 signs worth naming plainly, each one common among people who grew up in a house where love, however genuinely felt, was never quite unconditional. The first sign is the reflexive scanning of other people's moods before you've even said hello. You walk into a room and, before any conscious decision, your body has already assessed the emotional temperature, calculating how much of yourself is safe to bring forward today. Why does this scanning happen so automatically, in relationships that may pose no actual danger at all? Because your nervous system learned, early and thoroughly, that safety depended on reading a room correctly. And that lesson has not yet received the update that the room has changed. The second sign is the persistent belief that your achievements are the most reliable, sometimes the only reliable, way to secure someone's warmth. Praise arrived generously after success, and noticeably less after ordinary, unremarkable days, and so achievement became, quietly, a stand-in for love itself. Is that warmth ever really about you? Or is it a reward system you learned to chase long before you understood what you were actually chasing? The third sign is the difficulty accepting love offered without any visible effort behind it. When someone cares for you simply, without your having done anything specific to earn it, some part of you grows suspicious, waiting for the condition that surely must be attached. Alfred Adler believed that early relational patterns often create a lasting template for what love is expected to feel like. And if love always required effort in childhood, effortless love in adulthood can feel, disorientingly, like something is missing, rather than something finally, simply present. The fourth sign is the instinct to apologize preemptively, before any actual mistake has occurred, as a way of softening a disapproval you have come to expect by default. This apology rarely addresses anything specific. It exists simply to manage the emotional temperature of the room before it has even had the chance to shift. Why does a person learn to apologize for existing, rather than only for genuine wrongdoing? Because somewhere early on, existing fully, without apology, seemed to invite exactly the kind of disapproval this habit was built to prevent. The fifth sign is the quiet, persistent belief that your needs are a burden, something to be managed carefully, minimized, or ideally avoided altogether rather than simply expressed. Jung might have said this belief lives deep in the shadow, not something shameful, but something learned so early it has never been consciously examined, shaping your adult relationships according to rules written by a much younger version of yourself who had no other options available. But here is the deeper question worth sitting with far longer than any single sign on this list. Why does conditional love, even decades later, continue to shape how you approach connection, long after the original conditions have disappeared entirely? Jung believed that whatever remains unconscious in us does not simply fade with time. It continues operating, quietly, until it is finally recognized and consciously examined. A child's nervous system, taught that love required continuous vigilance, does not automatically relax once that child becomes an adult living in entirely different circumstances. It requires deliberate, conscious work to teach that system something new. Picture the tree standing bare through winter, appearing from a distance like something finished, without depth. Beneath the surface, unseen, the roots continue their patient widening in the dark. Is recognizing these 5 signs painful because something is being lost? Or is it painful the way any true growth is painful, the discomfort of something long buried finally being given room to change shape? This is the turn worth making gently here. Recognizing this pattern is not about assigning blame permanently to a childhood you could not control, nor about excusing yourself from ever having to grow past it. It is about understanding, honestly, why vigilance became your default setting, so that you can finally begin practicing something different as an adult, with far more safety available to you than the child who first learned to fear its absence. Jung called this long, uneven process individuation, becoming a person whose relationships are chosen freely, rather than filtered compulsively through rules laid down before you had any say in writing them. It rarely feels graceful at first. It tends to feel, initially, like grief. Only later does it begin to feel like freedom. So how do you actually begin loosening a pattern this old, this deeply embedded in your earliest sense of safety? This is where the observer becomes essential, the quiet witness inside you, capable of noticing the old vigilance rising, without immediately obeying its outdated instructions. Not the part of you that scans a room automatically, bracing for a disapproval that may never come. The part that can simply notice, calmly, I feel the old fear rising right now. And this fear was accurate once, in a house I no longer live in. Seneca often wrote that many of our adult fears are simply childhood fears, unexamined, carried forward long past the circumstances that first justified them. Can you feel the old dread rising the moment someone's mood shifts even slightly? And pause there, distinguishing clearly between the danger that was once real and the safety that is actually available to you now. Can you allow the fear to exist without letting it script the rest of the interaction? And here is something worth noticing. If you look honestly, this pattern has likely repeated itself across many relationships since childhood friendships, romantic partnerships, workplaces, each one, in its own way, echoing the same early lesson about what earns warmth and what risks its withdrawal. Why does life seem to recreate this same test in new rooms with new people, until it is finally recognized clearly enough to be answered differently? Jung believed that whatever remains unconscious in us tends to reappear in our lives as pattern, the same childhood dynamic, wearing new faces, until it is finally understood rather than simply repeated. Perhaps this is not really about the specific relationship currently testing your vigilance. Perhaps it is the newest version of an older question. When did you first learn that love had to be earned continuously in order to be kept? And are you finally ready to test whether that is still true? Viktor Frankl believed that between what happens to a person and how they respond, a space exists narrow, but entirely their own. You could not control the household that first taught you love was conditional. But the space between feeling the old vigilance rise and choosing, deliberately, to trust a safer present moment, that space belongs entirely to you. So what would it actually look like to finally practice this, gently, as an adult? Not something dramatic, not a single sweeping declaration of healing completed overnight. It might look like receiving a compliment without immediately deflecting it or searching for the catch behind it. It might look like resting on an ordinary day without needing to have accomplished something first to feel worthy of that rest. It might look like allowing yourself to need something from another person, and trusting that this need will not automatically cost you their affection. It might look like recognizing, calmly, that the people who truly value you can tolerate your full humanity far better than the old fear inside you currently believes. None of this arrives with fanfare. Jung once suggested that people will do almost anything to avoid facing the origins of their own fear. And if that is true, then simply naming this childhood pattern honestly, rather than continuing to obey it silently, may already be a significant act of courage. Return, for a moment, to that house where warmth once moved so unevenly through its rooms. Imagine standing in the doorway now, older, no longer dependent on that particular household for your survival, seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time, that the rules written there were never universal laws. They were simply the terms of one house, one family, one version of love that was never as unconditional as it should have been. Does that make the vigilance disappear instantly? Not necessarily. But does it mean the vigilance no longer has to be obeyed automatically? Perhaps, finally, yes. And so we return to the question beneath all 5 signs, beneath every scanned room, every preemptive apology, every need quietly minimized to avoid becoming a burden. What actually remains of you once you are no longer negotiating for love the way a frightened child once had to? What remains when your worth no longer depends on how carefully you manage everyone else's approval? Jung offered an answer that has outlasted him by nearly a century. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Perhaps the child who first learned that love came with conditions was never wrong to adapt, given the house they were standing in at the time. But perhaps the adult you have become is finally standing somewhere safer, with far more room than that child ever had to practice a kind of love that was never meant to be earned at all. If this resonated, subscribe to this channel and join us as we keep uncovering these hidden truths. Which of these 5 signs do you recognize most in your own life? Write it in the comments below, and let that house, wherever it still lives in you, finally be seen exactly as it was.